Hello everybody and welcome back to Space's Hard Vacuum with Cerberus. Today we are going to, oh you guessed it, we're going to build a rocket. Imagine that. We're going to get right into it. And then when we're done, I'm going to go learn how to speak English again. And no, I'm not going to edit that out. Why would I? It's probably slightly funny. So we start off with this here, which I maybe should explain a little more, as being the Explorer Probe Core. Just a little wee thing. Mass is all of, well, apparently 8 kilograms. Which is not bad, I guess. We stick this little tiny solid rocket motor on there. It is called the Baby Sergeant. Then underneath it, we're going to stick a cluster of 3 Baby Sergeants. Underneath that, we're going to stick a cluster of 11 Baby Sergeants. Yes, that's right. We're going to turn it up to 11. As you can see, this little Baby Sergeant, with its 8 kilonewtons of thrust, is enough to propel its 28 kilogram self and the 8 kilogram probe at insane accelerations, 22.6 thrust to weight ratio, essentially 22.6 Gs of acceleration force, ramping up to 58.31 at burnout. We're actually not going to do that. We're going to use the wonderful tweakables, and we're going to put that right at, we'll go to 50.5. And now it'll, it still starts at 11 Gs and maxes out at 29.45. That's still plenty enough Gs to kill a person if this were a manned mission, so that's lots. We'll stick this little 3 times decoupler under here, and I'm going to add something that they didn't have, and that's a tiny little reaction wheel. Why? Because it's there, and I can. So, why have no reaction wheel control when I can have reaction wheel control? It does reduce the delta V of this cluster of 3 boosters by quite a lot, because it weighs 150 kilograms, which I think is more than the rockets do. Yeah. Oh yeah, by almost double what this weighs, or masses, is what this reaction wheel masses. Well, stick it in there. Just means we'll have to put a little more fuel into the launch stage, which, for us with stretchy tanks, is not going to be a problem. So once we have that cluster of 3 in there as our second to last stage, we will stick the 11 times cluster decoupler, not here, or there, but there. And then this cluster of 11, with a nice little hole in the middle, goes up and around. I can't really slide it up over there, but you know what I mean. We actually are going to want that down there, because we won't want its shroud to pop out and cover it up until we do a decoupler there, like so. And then, since we don't really have the fairing bases yet, we'll just use a base ring. And we'll use, we could use a 1 or a 2. My test LV that I did to figure out how to make this work, hopefully, used a 1. Or I might have actually used a 1.25, because I was doing it in career mode. I was just, derping around. Let's make sure the staging under here is all good. That decoupler, then the cluster of 11, then its decoupler, then the cluster of 3 inside there, then the decoupler that's hidden in there, and then, okay, that's all good. That is good for go. We have that there. We'll attach our fairings to it shortly. But next we're going to go to a good old-fashioned cylindrical tank. We may end up using cryogenic fuels. I'm not too worried about it though. Cryogenic fuels would be better off using a cryogenic fuel tank because that has a little bit less dry mass when because it's already basically packed for cryogenic fuel if you want to. It's insulated already. So there we go. There's our 1 meter. Actually, no. I did this while I was testing too. There aren't a whole lot of very powerful 1 meter engines. So we're going to do 1 meter here. And 1.25 here. And we'll make it somewhat longer. Did end up being quite a long fuel tank in my test build. Yeah, those are too big. Forget which engine I used. One other added challenge with all of these mods, one of them is Real Fuels mod, which is one of the kind of the core ones. You can't just use any old engine. It would be enough of a it would be enough of a task for me to just match up an engine that was the right size for my stack and kind of the right thrust class. Because with the aerodynamics at play, thanks to Ferrum Aerospace Research, you don't really want to have too much thrust-to-weight ratio, because if you do, you'll over-accelerate, parts will break off due to aerodynamic failures, and if that doesn't happen, deadly re-entry will make you burn up as you leave the atmosphere rather than come back. So even just that would be a task that you don't have to do that in the stock game. So that's already adding a challenge. But to add even more of a challenge, now I also need to make sure I'm using a launcher engine. Under the, if you look here on this menu for the A4, under engine configs, it's type L+. Now that means it's basically a launch stage engine. Its specific impulse and its thrust are good at ground level. If I used something like this, a U+, it's an upper stage engine, and the plus basically just means it's even a little bit more optimized for vacuum operation. A U+ would be a terrible engine to use for launch, because its specific impulse at sea level is 107.4, compared to 439.4 in a vacuum. So not only would my fuel efficiency be horrible at sea level, I also wouldn't have any thrust. The thrust drops off quite considerably when your impulse drops like that. Okay. I think I spent enough time doing this in testing. I'm just going to skip right to the engine that I know worked, and that is the British one right here, the Decurion. I feel like it's a hard C, Decurion, but I'm not really sure. We will also liquid oxygen. I believe I used HTP because I kind of picked arbitrarily that I'm going to start using liquid oxygen, like a kerosene liquid oxygen setup, a little later, maybe one more tech level. So we can go up to 2, which gives us a max thrust of 344 kilonewtons. And once we fill our tank with kerosene and high test peroxide, that gives us, well, somewhere between 4,500 and 5,900 meters per second of delta V on the launch stage. It really is somewhere in between because the amount we have at our disposal will climb as we climb out of the thicker atmosphere. So it's somewhere in between. Probably the more important things to consider are that right now I have a sea level thrust-to-weight ratio of 1.82, which means basically that I can afford to make this tank a little bigger, put a little more fuel in it, because that's too much thrust at launch. It'll accelerate too quickly at low altitude, and bad things will happen. So we'll bring this up so we have a sea level thrust of 1.4, which gives us a 15.18 meter long tank. And there it is. Let's dink with the cone shape a little bit. It's really not going to matter very much. Well, except it makes it thicker. It changes basically changes the volume of the tank. So that's changed the game a little bit here. We'll just make sure it's recalculated everything properly. Yeah, thrust to weight ratio at launch is now down to 1.28. So now we can make the tank a little shorter. Bring it up. We'll do 1.35 instead of 1.4. That's plenty. Just like that. And then, like, we're basically ready to stick fairings on this now at this point. We're almost done, which is good because this hasn't exactly been incredibly short. But I am trying to make it a little shorter than some of my other builds. As much as I do want to keep trying to show the builds in the videos rather than just skipping right to the launch pad or doing kind of time warp stuff, I definitely understand that there's a point at which these build phases would just get to be a little bit too long. So I'm going to try from now on, and I kind of tried in my last video as well. I tried, but I didn't really do very well to try to keep the build a little bit shorter. Just like that. We won't really bother with end pieces because they're not wings, they're just fairings for a little bit of extra stability. We don't even need them to be all that much bigger than that. I'm not even sure if those are too big or too small to really serve their purpose. That I'm not really all on the up and up about. I'm sure eventually if I keep saying that, people will kindly tell me. But yeah, I do it. It's a guess based a little bit on appearance and a little bit based on experience. I wouldn't really say knowledge. I don't really know all that much about the finer points of aerodynamics, which is why, I didn't make aerodynamic mods for this game. I just play with them. I call that. That's just about finished. We'll just check on staging here. It's pretty simple. We already checked on everything from here on up and the top stuff. So basically what we've got is an engine that fires. We don't want those fairings to blow off at launch or even before it. That would just be a bit embarrassing. We will have it all happen at that time. 10,410 meters per second is enough, I think. As long as we get a decent shape to our gravity turn, we will be okay. If we make our climb too steep, it's really not going to do us any good. If we make it too shallow, it's not really going to do us any good. If we make it too shallow, we'll probably just blow up from atmospheric failure, aerodynamic failure due to atmospheric pressure, is what I'm trying to say. Pick a texture. Well, that's not bad. That's a little too much. No. A shiny brushed aluminum rocket fuel tank. Oh, a foil tank. Nah, that's a little too stretched. More foil. Yeah, we'll do that. I like it. I hope you do too, but in the end, it's my video, I guess. So it matters more that I like it, damn it. We will even pick... I guess I could have made the fuel tank green and then done green fins. What we'll do... Yeah, we get white, green, and black. So we will do black fins. Just like that. What shall we name it? Our Explorer probe system. Actually, I put a bit of thought into this earlier. It was initially going to be... I was going to make a backronym for it, basically. Rather, not an acronym, but a backronym. Where you make up the acronym first and then find words to make it make sense. I was going to use Dora, as in the Explorer. Couldn't really semi-quickly even think of a decent backronym for that. So it's going to be the Ford Explorer instead. Which I think I made it stand for the first orbital research device. Ford. We won't even do a Mark level for that, because the Ford Mark II would just be the sword. Which would actually be kind of witty. The W would be silent and invisible in that case. But in any case, we will save this. We will hope I will hope that I have not done anything that's going to cause explosions. Although you might hope that I have done something to cause explosions. And let's go. Alright, we have got a whole bunch of extra windows up here that I'm not going to need right away. Get rid of that one. We'll keep that one up for now. And the flight data I always like to see. Maybe you don't, but I do. I'll get to go on there. Throttle up. And launch. And also, change this back to meters per second, because I was flying an airplane and I had it showing in kilometers per hour. This isn't exactly the launch vehicle I designed, so I'm kind of guessing as to when to start the gravity turn. We'll start it now. Try to wait for it to stabilize a little bit. Wait for that side slip angle to drop to around 0. And hopefully now we'll just let it go. I'm hands off. It is just gravity turning. It's a ballistic missile right now. Speed is not climbing too quickly yet. Temperatures on the fairings are... well, they're going to rise, but they're not dangerous yet. I also apologize, partly after the fact, partly in the middle of it, and partly in advance for the possible variations there might still be in my voice volume. I do put this voiceover through like a normalization pass to kind of level out the volumes as much as I can, but at the end of the day, I'm hunched over, I'm leaned over my desk, speaking into this microphone, which just has its very short stock stand. It's a great mic, but along with the pop filter I have on the way, I've also got a shock mount, which will help insulate against these desk bumps and stuff like that, as well as a suspension arm, like so I can basically just have this mic floating up next to my head and I can sit up straight and all that kind of thing, which will be nice. We're still climbing pretty steeply. I'm going to actually engage the guidance now. We'll bring it down to 70 degrees and we'll keep the heading the same. We won't make anything too drastic happen for fear of this happening. Okay. It's, yeah, alright. Apparently that happened. Probably should have stabilized the roll first. I was just giving it too much to deal with, I think. Yeah, this is not happening. Well, we're just going to revert. I know I did say that we would treat every launch as a launch and, you know, let it all happen and consider it, you know, not go back in time type of thing. But at the same time, I don't think anybody making or watching this video is all that interested in watching that thing just spin around through the air and fall back to the earth, because that would take a while. And, yeah, you know, no, I don't think anybody really wants that. So, we'll start again. It's still a lesson learned, because I know that using the stock SAS attitude adjustment isn't necessarily always the best thing. Seems to work pretty well for planes. Tilt this guy over a little tiny bit sooner than it was before. I brought it down to a bit of a lower angle, so we'll see how that does. I was about to say, and it's not pitching down, but it is now. It just took a minute. Just passing Mach 1 now, and you see the aero effects going on there. Should be reaching max Q soon. Yeah, there we go. We just passed it, and now the dynamic pressure is dropping again, which means we're mostly out of danger. We're not really accelerating. Well, we're accelerating quickly, but we're already into thin enough atmosphere that it's not a huge deal. Well, I say that, but then temperatures have come up fairly high on the fairings. But we should be through the worst of that as well. Yeah, looks like we are. Getting a bit of opposite side slip there. Well, we'll bring the SAS back into it. We'll start pitching down a little extra here because we have lots and lots of thrust, and this gravity turn is, we're not going to fall fast enough. And look at our, yeah, we got plenty of apoapsis already, so I'm going to do a little bit of a gamey turn here. This is something I wouldn't normally like to do. I am a big fan of the natural gravity turns whenever I can make them happen, but we're going way steep here, so we're just gonna basically flatten this out. This rocket motor has a very strong gimbal. I think it can gimbal to something like 6 degrees, so it's a bit difficult to control at times, because it actually, you know, it'll whip the thing around. It'll whip a heavy rocket around through 180 degrees like it's nothing. And here we go. End of that stage. Decouple all the things. See our cluster coming out of its shroud there. That stays attached, and this just comes out like that. And let me see, what's our orbital velocity? It's not bad. We're not going to add very much, though, are we? So we will go. We'll go prograde minus Well, we'll just go to 15 degrees. Just like that. And we will light her up. Now we're getting awfully high. I feel like I've done this wrong. What's our time here? We're 7 minutes now. Well, we don't want that. And now we can pitch. We'll pitch down to 0. Actually, we won't. We'll pitch down to -10. See if we can salvage this, because we have precious little delta V left, actually. Which is, you know, it makes this interesting. It makes these clusters of rocket motors interesting, but they're a bit of a challenge to use. At least I've had some pretty poor luck with them. We're gonna do a -20 here, which I don't like it, but oh well. Nope, not good enough. So, we'll throttle down. Back to the Space Center. Alright, we're back. This time, we're going to start the gravity turn sooner. I really do like the natural gravity turn thing, but it's a challenge. Oh, what are we doing now? We're going all over the place. Well, we'll start the gravity turn now before we fly too much out of position. Oh, that's a bit messy. That's very messy. Too shallow, I think. And we're quite shallow. See, this was what the testing was supposed to help mitigate. Because now, I mean, even though, you know, our thrust is increasing, our mass is decreasing, so we're getting more specific power, we're getting more punch out of that rocket motor, so our gravity turn is... Our rate of drop is leveling off, I guess, but I think we're too shallow. We're going to be going too fast, too low. That dynamic pressure is still climbing. Although I'm not so scared of the dynamic pressure as I am the heat. Because the pressure is dropping again now, so we're out of those woods. But we're going to get a lot more heat now. And as I found out from testing, when the probe on this thing gets too hot, it just goes poof. And then so does everything else. There's not even an explosion, it just goes poof, just gone. Ooh. Yeah, that's not good. We might still make it, but it's not good. You don't want to be seeing this when you're coming out of the atmosphere. Temperature is still climbing. And now it is decreasing. Okay. Well, considering we survived so far, our ascent profile actually doesn't turn out to be all that bad. I'm a little bit scared to dink around with this now, because, oh yeah, okay. Rolling imparts a yaw, which is not very much fun. We'll just use the SAS to bring that back under control. Try to nudge our roll around. Maybe we can do that now. That's a strong reaction wheel. It's turning the whole rocket. Decouple that. God, that apoapsis is high. Turn that on. Yeah, I really don't like the idea of waiting to circularize at apoapsis here. So we don't have a lot of velocity. So we'll do a bit more of this. Actually, we'll be drastic about it. See if that's going to help. I hate doing that. But I don't seem to be getting the ascent profile right otherwise, so we kind of have to. That works. Not quite the orbit I was going for. It wasn't exactly a very efficient ascent. But you know what it is? It's a freaking orbit. Oh yeah, we don't have a reaction wheel on here, so that can go away. We no longer have attitude control whatsoever. We have no fuel either, so this is our orbit. And as you can see, periapsis is 197.9 kilometers, which is 17.9 kilometers past being high enough. And with that, we will take our store of electrical charge and convert it into data. If you see there, the last few probes, which mind you was in an earlier version of the tech tree mod, had, you know, like 100 data capacity, 100 or 500. This one has 12,000, and that's actually not something specific to just this probe. That's just new. I don't think this probe had that before. The old probes, if I were to go and launch them again, would have similarly big data stores. We activate the recorder. It's kind of collecting at still the same rate. You might be thinking, oh crap, this is going to take forever. Well, I guess actually in a time-wise, flight time, it will take quite some time to get this much data, but it now works with time warp, which itself only works when I throttle the freaking ship down. Just like that. See, that's faster. That's faster again. And that's really fast. Boy, look at that. Look at us go. Collecting that data on our hilarious orbit that we've got. We're almost full up, and well, ramp that warp up a little more. There we go. Got ourselves a full tank of data. There we go. Now then, we have a connection with one or more ground stations. That one there, Vandenberg Air Force Base. Hello, Vandenberg Air Force Base. We will do cosmic ray detection, which cost me 6,000 science. Explorer 1 cosmic ray detection complete, 100 science. Send her home. We'll see what we get from it. We don't have any more Delta V, so I don't need to see my Delta V stats. First, let's see if we get all of it. 100, boom. Cool. We no longer get the like 75-ish%, which means we won't have to do that a second time. We got all the science. Radiation readings, I think, cost 12,000. And I'm right, 12,000. So we'll activate the data recorder again. And we'll go for another spin. A little slower at first so we can see the sun and some other planets. And the Earth. For those of you with sharp ears, yes, I did just pronounce that with an F. Isn't that beautiful? Even with all that actively texture-reduced textures. But I can't complain. It might look a little pixelated from up here, but it's active texture management that keeps my game running. Warp it up. Ramp up the warp a little more. See if we can actually... I would love to be able to select my probe core. Kill the time warp, see if that helps. I mean, I know I have no connection and all, but... what the hell? There we go. What's up with that? Okay. Well, we don't really need to do that anyway. We can just keep that open. Our resource panel up in the top right. Keep that warp going. Try and manically rotate our camera as we go here. Yeah, it's not really going to work. But we're full on data now. We've orbited a few times. As you can see, we've been in flight now, counting time warps for just over 7 hours. Which means that even without, I mean, collecting data, we've probably got 12 hours of flight time actually running the data recorder. Without, I don't know, might even almost be the same. I don't think it uses a lot of electricity. I know it uses some. It converts electric charge into data. We will do radiation readings. We don't have connection right now. That's okay. We will soon, trademark, orbit over a ground station. Actually, it's not going to be that soon, is it? We're kind of in the unsweet spot of our inclination and the Earth's rotation. So, I mean, the Earth's going to rotate a bit. We'll probably get Israel next. Maybe Algeria. Depends. Depends on how much the Earth's not going to rotate that much. We'll probably get Israel. Oh, we had Israel for a moment. Oh no. Yeah, we did. We had Israel for a moment. Now we have Iran. And, ooh. Which one is that one? Must be Baikonur. Must be Kazakhstan. So, doesn't matter where it's from. We have a radio signal. We also have darkness. But there's our probe. Do the radiation readings. 250 science. Tasty, tasty science. And we've even discovered the inner Van Allen belt. But yeah, you know, I think we can actually claim that with the height we got to. We at least saw the inner Van Allen belt. I think that's somewhere around 1,000 kilometers. We made 1,500 at Apoapsis, so we spent some time up there. Transmit that science. And once that's done, this is basically going to be the Explorer 1's mission complete. It will be left in orbit, as far as KSP is concerned, forever. Because there's no atmospheric drag at the altitudes it's at. I don't know if the data transmission actually works with time warp. No, it does not. In fact, the act of increasing the passage of time in the time warp seems to slow down the transmission. There's our 250 science transmitted. That is all done. We will now maybe see if we can. We'll get it sunlit once more. We'll witness a beautiful space sunrise. And that's it, the venerable little Explorer 1 probe with its insanely high thrust, low duration solid rocket boosters that make it kind of tricky to plan your orbital insertion. Anyway, that's done, and we can leave it up there as the legacy of the first thing we actually made do circles of the planet. And now, it's science time! 447 science between what I had, a little bit I had saved still, plus the 350 that mission got us. What can we get ourselves? We don't really need these yet, although we could get both of them. But I mean, I've got a ton of engines I haven't even used yet. Bigger, more thrust. We don't need more engines yet. We certainly don't need early 60s tech level engines because we're still running on. We just launched a 1957 historical tech level, 58 I should say, historical tech level probe into space, and we did it with 1960-ish engines, I think, or did we? We did it with a Decurion. Was that actually a starter engine? Yeah, it was too. Oh, look at that. We did it with a tech level 0 engine. We just upgraded it to tech level 2, which was about 1960-ish in realistic tech level, real tech level, real life-ish tech level, whatever. 100 science for comm dishes. These antennas, there was nothing in that node still, so we're certainly not going to grab that one yet. Again, we don't really need a high-altitude flight yet either. We're still just launching rockets. We can get to plenty of high altitude already. Yeah, we don't need those two. Stock science instruments, including some extra useful stuff, I guess, in there. Mini goo. It's like a mystery goo that doesn't weigh 150 kilograms. I like it. Probe camera. I haven't actually ever used that before, or the laser mass spectrometer. Interesting stuff, I hope. But again, we'll leave those for now. Early landing legs. We're still a ways away from needing those too, I think. So we'll grab some control system. We'll grab some of these kind of auxiliary techs down here, maybe. 50, 50, 25. We'll definitely grab that for 25. That for 50. That for 50. I'll get that for 100 too. Now all that's up to tech level 2. Electronics. We're still electric propeller engines, you know, for extra thrust, I guess. I should put one of those on a space plane one of these times. Lights and lasers and an IR telescope that we're not going to get into any kind of useful orbit anytime soon. A useful orbit being 548 astronomical units, which, for the not quite so well versed, is 548 times the radius of Earth's orbit around the Sun. We can't do that yet. Biosample recovery, there's nothing in there yet. Although you'd think that would have been one of these. These are both biosample ones. You think that would have been in there. These two guys here, these are new for realistic progression light, so I have access to those now because I'd already unlocked this early probes, this tech level 1 probes thing, so we've got those now. So that'll be, we'll have to go back to those, I guess, for the next video. And the old Sputnik 1 is in there now too, so we'll check those out next time. Those we've done. Actually, no. I stand corrected. Let me do this again. This one here, RPL SWE MB1 and RPL USA NK1 are new. This was already here. In Tech 2 probes, you have the Stay-Putnik Mark 1 has gone into where Sputnik 1 had been, I think. So yeah, I don't know about that. We'll check that out. Maybe I'll just test that and get back to you guys next time. Explorer 1 and Vanguard, that's of course the, I didn't use this or the actual Juno 1 fuel tank or the A7 rocket engine, because as far as I'm concerned, I built something better. We did use those fun baby sergeants, and the only other thing in there that we haven't used is just the Vanguard 1, so that's going to be next up as well. So we don't really need to get Luna 1 and 2 yet either. I'll research that after I've seen what the Stay Putnik Mark 1 is all about. And this one here, the Swedish science probe and the American science probe, this one's near the moon. So when we go to fly this one, we'll research this one, Luna 1, and we'll send it up there too. I think that's just about going to do it. We may need some comm dishes to do moon stuff, so we'll save the rest of our science. We'll call that done for now. Alright, well, that's it for episode 3 of Space's Hard Vacuum. Thank you all again for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. This episode of Space's Hard Vacuum is brought to you by the number 17.8, and the word of the day is, appropriately enough, periapsis. Happy Kerbling!